Hello and welcome back to Everyday Writers, your one-stop shop for demystifying the writing process. We're here to be helpful guides on your journey to becoming a published author. I'm one of your hosts, Crystal McQueen.
I'm your other host, Jordan S. Keller, and thank you for joining us on Everyday Writers. Can you smell the love in the air? Because that's what we're talking about on today's episode. Crystal and I don't consider ourselves as romance authors, yet somehow romance always appears in our novels. Crystal, why do you think that happens?
Well, like when I'm reading a book, there's so much tension going on, there's character growth, there's things that are going on, and like romance is always just something you can root for. Like you want this person to be
Yeah.
happy. You know, they make all these bad decisions or they do all these things that you're just like, "Oh my gosh, be smart." But then you have this love interest that, it doesn't really move the story along, but it also kind of grips your interest. Like that's a happy ending, right? Like romance is a happy ending.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time. What about you? Why do you feel like you gravitate towards always having like a relationship
Yeah.
in your books?
I think it's just because it's unavoidable. I mean, you've put any two characters together for any amount of time, they're bound to develop feelings, whether it be platonic, whether it be romantic. And as a writer who puts themselves in a lot of our character or in a lot of my characters rather, I end up falling for my own characters, and that's just kind of hard to avoid, like being like admiring them and wanting them to succeed and wanting them to have these love interests and just someone to cheer them on. So for me, it's just sort of inevitable. And when I wrote my she shanty novel that's coming out of Sea of Ships and Souls, I went with the mindset like Jason Sable are not falling in love. Jason Sable are not falling in love. And by the end of the book, Jason's got a little crush on Sable. Like, oh, my friend's so cool and she's so smart and she's so pretty. I'm like, dang it, I worked so hard and I couldn't escape it.
That was the same thing with Jaeger and Ada. Like emphatically like they are not going to
Yeah.
end up together. They're kids. They're just going on this journey together. And like we're all like, "Oh no, they
There's
really
Muujin.
did."
Oh,
So I do love that. I also feel like there's a lot of times where when you're in a relationship, you have a different love language than the person who
yeah.
you end up choosing as your spouse. Like my husband and I have very different love languages. And so I catch myself for the love interest in the book putting in ways that I wish that person would like love me, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like that's a thing that comes out in my novels is just me expressing my love language through my
Yeah.
characters.
Oh,
So.
so in your novel Up Pops the Sun, what is it that Marcus does that sort of an example of that?
So there's an example where they're very frustrated, and she's got these new shoes that she bought on clearance, and she hates them, and she throws them away. And like they've got drama, so she's walking around in socks for the whole day. And then at the end of the day, she's trying to figure out, well, I have no shoes, and he went out to like the corner store and bought her flip flops, and he was like, "You're gonna get
Oh,
home with these." Like he didn't like she didn't mention it, like it was
yeah.
just like kind of a side part of the story, but he paid attention, and I think that that's the kind of love language that I would really
Mhm.
love. And my husband
Oh,
does do that a lot, but it's just those like you notice the little things, right?
just
And
being very
so
like, attentive and
yeah,
attentive. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
when you brought that chapter to writing group, I think all of us squealed a little when he
yeah.
produced those flip flops for her. That was so
Yeah.
cute.
So, but I mean, I think that even when I read books, I really want, and it doesn't have to be romantic love. Like I do know that romance comes into it a lot, but even my two main characters, you've got, Ellie and Andy, they're best friends, and
Mhm.
it's platonic love, but it's just so much more than just a friendship.
Right.
It's almost like familial. And so even if there wasn't a romantic element, there's always going to be a relationship in it that's going to, really drive the character to either make bad decisions or, get better and grow.
And I feel like a lot of stories are now revolving around character relationships more so than like big plot setting environments and everything. And I don't know if that's just like the different books I've been more gravitating towards, or like if the whole like book genre is shifting to more character driven and character relationships versus like when's the final battle going to happen.
I kind of wonder if it's because we've become so like modular and individual, if we put more relationships in our books because we're not getting it in real life. I wonder. What do you
Oh,
think?
that's a deep dive. I don't want to say yes because it makes us feel sad. Like we never leave our little writing corners.
But I mean, like even last night, we had writing group and we had,
Yeah.
a group of people and we had finished probably earlier than I think we've ever finished. And we just
Yeah.
sat around and we were talking and remembering things and laughing. And there was just so many shared memories across our group. And it's like, you don't get this a whole lot. Like we go out
No,
of our way to get together as a group. I wish that for everybody. And I think
me
that,
too.
maybe if people don't have that, they try to get it out of books.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I remember like it's funny you bring up the last night's group when we were all sitting in the living room before getting started. I remember thinking like, thank God we're all writers and we have this opportunity to come together every other week to see each other and like would we be friends if it weren't for this? And like I would like to think yes, but then like how would we all have found each other without this common interest and this common goal to be published? And it's just
Yeah.
it yeah, like that human connection. We're always hunting it, whether, like you said, in real life or through literature.
Well, I love that. So that's actually one of the topics that we wanted to talk about was how do you show a relationship in a book? And one of the things is commonality. So why don't you talk a little bit about things that work to make a characters come together and what doesn't?
Yeah. So I made the mistake of first early writing, like, oh well, these two characters both think they're hot. So done, romance is finished, which is the exact opposite. Like, yes, physical attraction is one thing, but to make sure your characters have good chemistry, they need to have things in common and not just like favorite colors and favorite foods, but they need to share beliefs and um oh my gosh, what's another word for beliefs? But like just standards of living and ideals and stuff like that. They need to be able to have the same sort of sense of humor, and they don't have to have like the same, but they have to be able to appreciate each other's humor. And then I always thought a similarity in upbringing was important, just because like that way they have that
Oh my gosh.
right. Just so
That's
there's
not going to work for my husband and me. We did not have a similar upbringing at all.
just like a common ground that you can both your characters can kind of put a foot on to be able to understand the other one.
Yeah.
So maybe similar upbringing isn't the correct terms, but just an understanding, a common ground for them to start on.
Yeah,
Um,
foundational. But I mean, I do think
Foundation.
it's like common goals, right? Like, how many
Yeah.
times have you met somebody and, like I even had a coffee with somebody earlier today and I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep asking her questions until I can hit on something. Oh, we both like to exercise. Let's talk about that.
Mhm.
So just having something that they can get both excited about and kind of foundationally build on, that's something that I think is really important in any relationship. But
For
I
sure.
also think it's really important that they dream together. That they have dreams for the future
Oh,
that don't necessarily have to be the same dream, but they need to kind of
yeah.
align or collide, especially if one person is like, I have a new dream because you know what? Like I can see myself
Mm,
so much better there. And
yeah.
I say that because of the book that you brought last night, where you were like, I don't know if these two people are going to end up together. And I was like, dude, I feel it. Like,
It's happening.
well, and it's not even that they had like commonality, but it's like that they both had, like okay, so now I'm struggling with words. It's like they have a different maturity level or attitude. So you
Mhm.
have the two that are like, oh, he's hot, I like him, that kind of stuff. There's like a crush going on, but it doesn't feel as like deep as the one who's like, I can be snarky with you because,
Mhm.
real things are happening here. And so I feel like it's that. It's almost like a similar mindset, even if
Yeah.
you don't have like common ground. I don't want to give anything away from your book.
Right. No, thank you. Oh, I just sent it over to the editor and I'm so afraid like in a month all of it'll be
Congratulations.
changed. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, but we'll save that for next month. We've got a whole editing episode coming up. Um, so we've discussed how characters need to relate, but how can romance relate to a plot? Or how can it influence a plot rather?
Well, so I guess really a question would be like, what are some of your favorite romance novels and how have they
Oh,
influenced the plot? And it doesn't have to be a romance novel, but like
mhm.
two people that you really wanted to get together and they did, and you're like, yay, but it
Yay.
really wasn't the main part of the plot. Do you have like any
Yeah.
books like that?
First comes to mind because I'm rereading it. It's Six of Crows, and the two of the six main characters. Uh, by the end of the book, they do sort of end up together, or like their paths are lining up so they can end together. And throughout the first book, I'm like, oh, they weren't really in love then, and every thought the one character has always leads back to the other one, and like you're able to track like this infatuation, this admiration, and like it's never really a like gosh, I just want to be with them. But it's just like, gosh, this person is so important to me and I'm going to treasure them forever for it.
Oh,
So Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that kind of goes back to the whole why characters do well together. And
But
then,
how did it like
oh,
influence the plot? Like
oh, you're
with
right.
them
I'm so
getting
sorry.
together or oh, no, 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 just like
Yeah,
did them getting together actually like change the course?
not at all. So they didn't like get together until like the epilogue, and even then, it
Oh,
was more
I love
of a
that.
it was more of a show of the other character growing out of this environment they thought they had to be in. And so it was this huge growth and like this character putting themselves out like this is me as you always thought I should be. Is it enough for you? And it was enough for her. And like and it's so freaking cute.
How
But the
disappointing would that be? She's like, no, it's not enough.
it is like so that's it's an old book. So like she wants to like leave the city to go on this huge quest, and he buys her a ship to do it. He's like, "Here's a ship if you want it, or you could stay here. Like it doesn't matter, but it'd be cool if you stayed here with me. But here's this ship in case you don't." Um, but oh my gosh! But anyway, their romance has nothing to do with the plot at all. But it's just this admiration for each other that pushes the other one to be able to achieve the thing they didn't think they could do or overcome the obstacle that they always thought was going to be impossible for them.
Yeah.
And you can show that in just a really tight friendship or like a platonic or romantic relationship. Um,
So there's a book called Starling House by Alex Harrow, and it's one of my favorite. Like she's one of my favorite authors. I
yeah.
read everything that she puts out. But the two main characters, like there's a lot of tension between them and stuff like that. The house is totally haunted, and it's meant to like protect humanity and all this kind of stuff. And so this woman who's always been alone and always had to take care of herself and always had to figure out like how to do everything is suddenly thrust into this world where there are like ghosts and demons that are trying to take over. And so, like, if they didn't end up together, like they still had to do this battle, right?
Mhm.
And they really didn't until the very end. And I think maybe that's what I really like is just you're not even like it's like a slow burn throughout. And then at the
Yeah.
end of it, they're like, we've been through so much, I guess, shared trauma together, or we have this goal. And in this case, the house had chosen them both to be like the protectors and warriors, that they ended up together. But there was another book that I read called The Ninth House by I think her name's Leah Bardo. I
Yeah, yeah.
think
She wrote to
I
the crows.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I butcher her name.
I do
Um,
too.
and so the whole book, you've got a dual timeline, and in the past, you can see all the tension together, and like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, they're gonna get together, and they're gonna get together, and then you get all the way to the end, and he really is dead, and you're like, dang it.
No.
And so even that kept the plot moving because like I just kept hoping that he really because he had disappeared. Sorry, major spoiler.
Spoilers.
That's also a pretty old book. So, but it's that thing where it's like, even without it at the end, you're just kind of like, that made the tension so much more because it really had nothing to do with what was going on. Like they had all this magic going on and, people were being attacked and she was trying to figure out her own powers. But like you just got this aspect of it where it's like, you know, I've got this connection with this guy. We don't really have a shared past, but we have shared trauma, I
Mhm.
guess. So anyway, sorry, that was a lot to say.
No, no. It's so neat how like non-romance novels have like obviously the romance is the subplot of it, but with like
Mm.
traditional romance novels where the romance is the plot of it, it kind of has that same like something needs to be in the way, and that way they don't end up together too quickly. And so, one of our tips for writing romance without being a romance writer is that the something needs to stop your characters from being together, and they need to be able to overcome that in order to reach the ending of them being together, or else the cheesy romance love story won't have any stakes or tension.
But to
And
be fair, they don't have to end up together, right? If your book isn't a
oh,
romance,
oh
if you write a
yes,
romance and your book doesn't end up them together, you're gonna have a lot of disappointed
it's a big no
readers.
no.
Um,
But yeah, non-romance books they don't have to.
They don't, but like there's still that aspect of feeling it, like wanting those two characters to be together. And so like sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, but the plot still moves.
Mhm.
So, so what are some of your favorite like romantic elements to include in your books?
I love when characters share food and like
Oh,
not
me
like
too.
crazy, like, oh yeah, not like they need to feed each other strawberries, but just like having a meal together just feels so intimate for some reason. And I don't know if it's like because of my relationship with food, I think it's awesome. Or just like all of my favorite memories with my husband have involved food, us being at restaurants, us goofing off and stuff at with food in places. And so just them sharing a meal, and usually when they're sharing a meal, they're revealing something critical to the plot, to themselves. And so those always go hand in hand with me. And then and I absolutely love the trope of the almost kiss. Like they're leaning in, it's about to happen, and then something pulls them apart. And then they're
Uh,
leaning in, it's about to happen, and then something pulls them apart. And for me, that just drives up that tension and that
oh,
excitement for like, oh, are they gonna do it?
so
What
there,
about you? Oh,
that intimacy. Well, like that, I love that. I love
yeah.
like the shared food. So like, somebody having something and giving them half of it. I
Oh
very
yeah.
much have my characters bring food.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout my entire book, they're either making somebody food, they've brought food, they brought somebody coffee. It's just there's always this gift of, I guess, edible endorsements, endorphins. Uh, so just I think food is just such a big part of our culture in general, and it's so intimate to share it with somebody. Because like, don't take candy from strangers, but if you're a
Sharing that
possible
muffin at the
partner.
coffee. Right. Oh, I love it. You
So,
did oh
oh no, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, you did such a great way of like I don't want to spoil your book Up House the Sun, but there's a scene where there's like a potluck and Ellie, the main character, she brings a meal and like she's so nervous that like people won't like it. But and then people do like it. And I feel like that's such a great way to look at her. Like she's so nervous, they won't like her, but they do like
Yeah.
her. And I loved how you paired how you paired that.
Well, that's not in there anymore. That entire scene is cut, but they end up going to a restaurant together, so there's still a
Okay.
food scene.
There's still food.
Um,
Okay.
but I do like that, like representing like how I cook or the food that I bring might
Hmm.
not represent who I am. But that's another thing that I think is really important in romance novels to me is that the love interest has to have their own journey and their own
Oh,
depth.
yes.
And I think
You
you do that really, really
oh,
well. If
it took a
you
lot of time.
if you look at the Ashes Over Avalon series and the amount of stuff that Cinder does going up and down and up and down, and every
Mhm.
time you're like, okay, you're good now. Damn
Psych.
it.
Gotcha.
And so I feel like if the love interest doesn't have that same depth, you're not going to get the same, I guess, shivery feeling because it's like an ideal rather than an actual person. I don't know.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that?
I just read like a little like Tumblr post, and it was basically like if your like secondary character is on like beck and call to your main character, they're not a character, they're a convenience store. And that really stuck with
Ooh,
me. Yeah, so like you want and like we've discussed it before, your side characters have their own lives. Not everyone likes your main character. They all have their own goals. And that's the same for that love interest. And like their number one goal could be like, gosh, I want to take them out for coffee. But they're still gonna be worried about work, they're still gonna be worried about family, they're still gonna have to get to the gym on time or something. So making sure that they're as fleshed out as your main character is
yeah.
also very important. And that makes the love so much real because that way, like, gosh, what does your main character see in this person? They're a stick in the mud. And but no, you have all these things about him and he has to wake up early to walk the dog because he's only got 3 legs and only walks in the morning traffic. You know.
Yeah. Well, I will say that it bugs me, even in like traditional romance novels, when the love interest is perfect. Like when the love interest does, says all the right things and does all the
Mhm.
right things, and you're really angry at the main character because they're just being like selfish or
Yeah.
narrow-minded or intentionally obtuse. I'm like, I want your main character to, sorry, your love interest to do something stupid,
Hmm.
say the wrong thing, abandon at the wrong moment,
Yeah.
just those things, because that's the kind of stuff that also goes with love is love and forgiveness and even
Hmm.
even loving somebody through their flaws. And so don't make them perfect.
Yes. And those flaws, those misconnections, those can all raise the tension in the novel, whether it be your subplot or your regular plot. So that's just all wrapped up in a bow to have them all work together like that.
So what is your preference? Do you like to have your characters meet for the first time and the reader gets to see that like initial meet cute? Or do you kind of like have them into a relationship and you're kind of building off of some kind of foundation?
I'm a sucker for a meet cute, and they could have like known about each other before it, but like that first spark, that's what I really love to write and make sure that's included in all the novels. And it might just be like three-fourths of the way through, and it's the character realizing like, oh my gosh, I do love this person, or like I do want to get to know this person better. So I'm 100% always have a meet cute. Make it exciting, make it like kind of match the tone of the novel or their relationship. So you kind of referenced the book I brought last night to writing group, and both the characters are able to be snarky to each other, and that's them forever. Is they can play off each other, they can write each other, and they can just feed off each other's snarky energy. And so it was important for me to showcase that first meeting, and you can expect it every time they're on page together.
Well,
But
and
what
that
about you?
happened
Oh,
with Cinder too. Cinder and
yeah.
um, Abigail. Sorry,
Mhm.
all
It's
I could
okay.
think was Avalon, which is her alter ego.
Yes.
But like also, and I keep going back to this book that, I really want you to go back to is Jaeger and Ada. Like the first time we
Mhm.
meet them, they grew up together. So there wasn't that meet cute. It was really like, this is, you've been long since friend zone, dude. You're a
You
brother
just didn't
now.
know it.
Yeah. And so what are the challenges between writing something where you get that spark at the first time versus you've got like a slow burn that maybe they're not even aware of?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think the challenge is not to let it burn too quickly. If you're going to do that slow burn, that slow reveal,
Mm.
like you kind of got to like not necessarily tease it out because you don't want your reader to get suspicious, but you want to be able to like look back and like, oh, that does make sense, and that's why, and this is why. And there's a book called Bravely by Maggie Safewater, and it's not like there's no romance whatsoever until one page I'm thinking like, do we like so and so? And then a couple pages later the main character is like, oh my gosh, do I like so and so? And I wish I could convey how she wrote it like that, but it was just like the feelings, like she never gave the main, or the main character never gave the love interest like a passing glance, and they were always an adversary, and like them entering the scene was always seen as like a bad moment, and then all that started shifting, and it's because they started seeing each other's perspective better.
Oh.
But anyway, so like just not burning too quickly, I think would be how I would approach.
Oh, so some of my favorite, I'm a big Jane Austen fan. Everybody knows that. And it's funny because somebody had just mentioned how they almost didn't finish Persuasion, which is one of my favorite books by her. Um, and in that book, you've got these two main characters. You've got Anne and Captain Wentworth, and he's kind of a dick. Like he's awful throughout the whole book. But he does little things that make you think that he's just kind of bitter because he proposed to her when she was 18, and she's like, "No, I'm too young. You don't have any money. I don't have any stability." And so he went and got rich and then came back, and he was like, "See how rich and important I am." But she's always been like this, like stay steadfast person.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book was fine. I was reading it and kind of enjoying it, but not like I did with like Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility until I get to like the last 15 pages and he overhears a conversation she has with another person when he realizes she still loves him. And she's talking about how like, women don't stop loving even when all hope for love is gone. And like that's what she tells to
Oh.
this other guy. And so they're all in this room. There's like, I don't know, 10 people in this room, and he's hastily writing her a letter. She doesn't know he's doing it, but he's listening to this conversation, and like anyway, as he walks out, he slides the letter across the desk and like stares at her. And I'm like, what is happening? And then you read this letter and it just makes your stomach drop out. And he's like, oh my gosh, he
Oh.
still loves her. He regrets everything that he did. And like, it wasn't like a great romance story. Like they didn't like, kiss and like, oh, this is amazing kind of thing. But just that letter, that big reveal was just so, I don't know. It was so amazing and so like stomach dropping that I was like, how does not like everybody not love this book?
Do you think it was because it was so unexpected that it weighed that much to the story, or was it just like the timing of it?
I think it's because he was really a dick through the entire book. Like I mean, he did kind things for people, but he would give her the cold shoulder. Like it was very much like he just wanted to show her he was important, but he had no feelings for her whatsoever. And so it wasn't until that last moment where you're like, all of that was just a show. So I don't know, like there was
Oh.
just something redeeming about it. And he was very apologetic and hoped she could forgive him and all this stuff. And then of course, like they get married and I mean that's how the book ends.
Happily ever after. And
So
speaking of happily ever afters, one of our writing romance tips is to study the different subgenres of romance and know the expectations. Because I've always been told that people read romance because they know what's going to happen at the end. Like it, you know, they're going to be happy, you know, they're going to get together, but all the different subgenres are going to be promising different things compared to like a second chance romance to a an enemies lovers romance. And so if your goal is to write certain subgenres in the romance category, make sure you study up and make sure you know what the readers are expecting because you don't want to let them down.
yeah, no, I think that's great. So I know we've gone a little bit long. That's all the time that we have for this episode of Everyday Writers. I really, really hope that you all enjoy that romance element in your books too. I would love to hear what you guys think. Like we would love
Yeah.
to hear what you guys think about including romantic elements in your own book and what you like about it and you know what makes you shiver. But until next time, don't forget those characters need common ground.
Romance should be adding to your plot, not the only part of it.
And study subgenres of romance. What do you like about love stories and other books, and how can you incorporate that into your own writing?
And then join us next time for tips and tricks on self editing before you send your manuscript to a professional editor. If you love what you hear on Everyday Writers, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give Crystal and I a follow on Instagram.
And don't forget, every day is a good day to write. See you next time.
Bye.